given the current situation, do you expect any changes or opportunities?
Yeah, we are going to see some changes with a post-COVID China, certainly in the short to mid-term. I think one of the big changes we've noticed, obviously, of course, is the consumers moving away from shopping in wet markets. So this happened straight away during the coronavirus pandemic period in China when the outbreak was at its peak. A lot of wet markets were closed either permanently or temporarily across different regions in China. And that took Chinese consumers that were typically shopping these markets from looking for their fresh food in the wet market to then going to e-commerce channels that deliver locally, or also supermarkets and hypermarkets. So for international brands, you won't see international brands in wet markets, but you will see them in supermarkets and on these e-commerce platforms. So that's already one way where brands can get more exposure to Chinese consumers that they wouldn't have got before. We think this trend will stick a little bit more with younger consumers and the middle class consumers, and perhaps less so with elder consumers that will maybe go back to the wet markets. But there's definitely going to be some shift away from them. Certainly in the short term, restaurants have reopened, but business is a little bit down. So obviously restaurants use often local produce to create meals, and they do sometimes sell international brand products such as beers and drinks. But typically, if you're in a supermarket, you're going to have, and you're buying in a supermarket instead of in a restaurant for your meal, you're going to have more chance coming across various international brands. So those two things are actually quite positive changes for international brands in what is obviously not a positive situation. I think the third thing to look at also with this, and it's tied in, is cold chain logistics in China and the cold chain network across China. So China's cold chain logistics is actually not that advanced. It's about 0.15 cubic meters per capita in terms of their cold chain capacity. And other developed countries are typically at 0.5 cubic meters. So the government's rolled out lots of initiatives to increase this over the last few years. And I think we're going to see more of an increase in cold chain logistics network capacity over the next several years, which is going to help these e-commerce platforms and supermarkets deliver fresh food easier to consumers. So I think that's also something that's going to, again, pull people away from wet markets and more into those places where there are international brands. The other thing to think about here is healthier eating. Obviously, there's been a global trend worldwide for people eating healthier and healthier, but I think the coronavirus has made people more interested in protecting their immune system, eating healthier, and in line with that, Chinese consumers do tend to think international brands from foreign markets often have cleaner environments, and they sometimes trust the supply chain more than they would their domestic brands in their domestic market. So again, I think that can play quite nicely for international brands. One of the big challenges now is market access. All the trade shows in China, certainly this year, the first half of this year are cancelled. We don't know how busy that they're going to be when they do happen in the later part of this year or perhaps next year. And because of China's Great Firewall with the internet restrictions, it makes it very difficult for buyers to access brands easily with the internet and with language restrictions and things like that. So what I think we're going to see is the brands that can cross that challenge and get their products and their brand in front of buyers are going to see a much bigger opportunity with less competition, and those that don't obviously will have no chance in the market. So I think there's a kind of short-term opportunity there for different international businesses that can solve that problem and get their product and their brand in front of buyers.